But to start out with, I think the library is on board, so I call on Maddie to come forward and present her budget for the upcoming year.
Excellent, thank you. I do have hard copies of this that I will pass around. Thank you, sir. So I'll give that a second.
And welcome, Maddie.
Thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time today. I figured just while I was here, now would be a kind of great time to go over our 2021 annual report. North Dakota Century Code 40-38-09 does state that a report needs to be made to the governing body of the city or board of county commissions every year that states a number of facts that are going to be found in this report. I'm not going to go through everything. I just have a couple highlights that I'd like to kind of go over before we get to our official budget ask. On the third page of this, you'll see some fun facts and figures from 2021. We had over 24,000 people visit the library in person in 2021. We had circulation of over 28,000 items between books, movies, and ebooks. We had over 130 programs that were offered to the public and over 2,100 attendees of said programs. One of the exciting things that happened actually in 2020 but was recognized in 2021 was that the North Dakota State Library and the North Dakota Library Coordinating Council upgraded the Lake Region Public Library from the tier developing as per the North Dakota Library Coordinating Council standards to excelling, and developing being the lowest tier, excelling being the middle. And so the Lake Region Public Library joined only a handful of libraries across the state to reach this tier. That just indicates that our building is ADA accessible. We're offering the programs and services that we should be for our own demographic, and with the funding that we receive from the state and the city and county. So that was really exciting, and we're hoping to even be able to make it up to Future Focused and join one of only 3 libraries in the state to get that tier as well. The following page is a very just quick fiscal report that details our revenues and expenditures for the library. As you can see, the city and the county make up the majority of our budget. Last year, over $187,000 came from the city of Devils Lake in Ramsey County. We did have some private donations and a small amount of state aid from the North Dakota State Library. We are hoping that that number will go up this year, which would be very exciting. And expenditures are, as one would anticipate, most due to staff and operations, but a pretty large portion, almost $22,000, to collection of new materials, new books, movies, and other resources to circulate and help promote the good in the community. Our building is coming up on 20 years next year, and we are very lucky that it has been very well functioning thus far. There are some systems that maybe have not been touched in 20 years, such as our phone system, our air conditioning, which was a very fun 82 degrees last week, but is much happier this week. So those are some things coming down the pipeline that might need to be addressed. But for right now, we have lots of fans, and that is a blessing. Just one other thing that I would point out is the American Library Association has created a return on investment calculator just to kind of showcase the value of a tax dollar in the public library. And so based on the number of books that we are borrowing, the number of internet sessions we have, the number of faxes we send, and anything for any kind of patron of the Lake region, for every $1 that was put into the library, mostly again from the city and county, the patrons of the library receive $2.45 of goods and services back. So we think that's a pretty good yield, and we're proud of that figure. So those are just some things I want to highlight. Again, there's more in that. Please feel free to ask any questions if you have them. Our budget request for 2023 would be to request our 5 mills that we have been historically requesting, which would be valued at an estimated $102,375. This coupled with 3.07 mills requested from the county, and hopefully a good amount from the North Dakota State Library should keep us in the green for 2023. The only kind of significant changes in any kind of expenditures or revenues coming up, our revenue code of fines and fees, which is 36050, has gone down to zero. The Lake Region Public Library Board did vote in June to eliminate daily late fee accruals. So whereas normally, or historically, I should say, if a book was 10 days overdue, patrons were assessed a 10-cent charge per day that it was overdue. And then they were, expected to pay that upon return of the book. That daily late fee does not exist anymore. Now instead, if an item is out 30 days past the due date, it is marked as lost and the patron is assessed for the full replacement cost of the item. So whereas they maybe had been fined $3 for being 30 days late, now they're being fined $27.99 to cover the entirety of the book. But as long as they return it, we get rid of those. We just felt that this was a barrier to people using our goods and services, and it was something that our board was very passionate about discussing. And after many, many months of studies and research and trial and error, this is where we're at. So that revenue is down from 1,500 anticipated down to zero. Expenditures, there are just a couple of updated asks. We believe that our electricity bill is probably going to go up a little bit just due to inflation and the number of hours that were open this year compared to previous kind of pandemic years. Asking for an upgrade of $500 extra in account 43600 to be provided for outreach and programming, which is something that we currently don't have an account for and that I believe we can really benefit from. And then books and children's materials, asking a little bit more for each of those to continue to acquire the most popular new releases out there, as we are a popular collections library. That is what I have. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Who does your maintenance on your facility? Is that are you responsible for taking care of
So it depends on what needs the maintenancing. Lake Region Sheet Metal will come and deal with heat, air conditioning. Otter Tail will come for power. We have a janitor then who comes twice a week.
Do you schedule a routine service on the furnace and the air
Yes, we do.
conditioner?
Yep.
Find anything good with it, Spencer, or any questions you have?
No, I just want to thank Maddie and Lake Region Public Library. Maddie brings a lot of passion and innovation and energy to the library, and we're really happy that she's moved to town. And thanks for all the good work at the library.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so
with-
much.
With today's digital world too, seeing that people coming and going is awesome. See that
Absolutely.
you're doing something right because they're getting them off the computer and
Yep.
actually getting out there. So
Yeah, we're our library count chart. We count, how many people come in and out every day. It's already higher than 2021, so we're hoping that that trend just continues to go up and up. And even with the nice weather, still have people coming in and looking at books.
awesome.
I want to thank you for a nice annual report and
you.
going over the budget today. Unless anybody else, any other questions of Matt?
Thank you so
Thank
much.
for your time. So now it's Lisa's turn from the Heritage Center.
I don't want to follow Maddie.
You'll do fine. You've done it before.
She is an awesome addition to our town. We've worked together on a few different things and will continue to. So, but yeah, I don't have the annual. I have this budget that is very simple. Doesn't change much. The only thing that I really want to talk about, well, there's a few things, but that might be different is, of course, the roof is always an issue. And I am putting in an application for ARPA funds through the county. And I have 3 different roofing companies coming for bids this week. That is not easy, as you guys probably know, if you have any roofing issues, to get people to come for a bid even, and they're not local.
Really
have to
unique
go.
roof to fix.
I need it fixed. So anyway, they're coming this week. So that's the only update I really have on that, is that I'm really hoping and praying for a fix to that, because it's been almost 4 years of we won't even say what. I do have, of course, myself as the only employee of the Heritage Center. We have a gentleman back again that works about 35 hours a week through NICOA. Used to be Experience Works. The government pays him to, it's supposed to be to get skills to go back into the workforce. Older than average people, and he is definitely older than average. He's 83 maybe, but he helps me out a lot. There's a lot of things he can't do, which our board members then pick up, and if I have to hire it out, I will, but we try to do everything very, very frugally. Art Fest was, again, a lot of work, but it was well worth it. I think we will make a little bit of money this year, about $2,000, which sounds like not very much, but when it's probably a $30,000 to $35,000 project, that is pretty good. So it hopefully will get better every year and bigger. We had beautiful art this year. I was really proud of the show. The street vendors, I hope to get a little better next year, but with weather and different things, it wasn't quite as showy as it was last year, I feel, but that'll change every year. Again, I'm working with Maddie with a few different things. She's a breath of fresh air, kind of gets me excited about things that I maybe hadn't thought about. And I am huge on relationships in the community, like I always have been. You know, you guys give us a lot of money, and that doesn't go unnoticed. You guys are always the ones who help me when I have an issue, like the sewer issue last year. Everything's been flushing normally this year. And I appreciate all the help that you guys give me. It does not go unnoticed, for sure. What other questions do you guys have that I hopefully can answer?
I would just add to the commission, we typically give about 1.5 mils
Oh, yeah.
to the Lake Region Heritage
That's what I
Center,
was
and you'll see
about to
that in your general fund
Okay.
budget. So,
Mhm.
which just a little over 32 grand.
And we could not operate without it. Absolutely not. I wish I could say that one day soon you guys wouldn't be holding our building up, but you are. So for sure.
Well, thanks for your hard work and trying to keep it maintained, because
We're trying.
it gets used. I see a lot of people
I
over
was
there.
gonna
Yeah.
ask how many people have you cut come through? Just an average for the year.
Well, 2020 was virtually no foot traffic. 2021 was better. This year with the Art Fest and things, this month alone, in July, we've had over 500 people. And that doesn't include that day. So it's been a lot busier, to the point where I have got also 2 other volunteers that help me just with, so people aren't going to walk off with our artifacts, because I can't tell if they're going to go downstairs or if who knows where they're wandering. So I can't get everything done. So this year, I hope, was more of a normal year, because we had the downtown project, and then we had COVID, and we had all these things happen since I've been there. But this year, the foot traffic through the museum has been much bigger. So
Do you
that's
think-
good to say.
You think by yourself with the volunteers, you're okay? Wise with
Yeah.
covering everything that needs to be covered?
I believe so. Sometimes it's a little busier than I'd like it to be, but I will never turn anyone ever away. We are working on, the Art Fest helps in so many ways. I get so many people that are interested in helping me. And there's a lady that came through, and she's new. She's in the Maddock area, but she wants, I said, I've been trying to put together a new membership since I've been in this position. It's difficult because we don't charge admission, so then what are the perks to have a membership? And she said, well, that's what I used to do. She used to be from Colorado. So she's going to help me put together a good membership package. And hopefully by the first of the year, I'll be able to get funds coming in through that. I'm not sure what that package will look like, but I can just say that foot traffic is busy. I would love more help in the museum, but, hard to get people when you can't pay them.
Anything else, commissioners?
Okay.
Thanks for all your hard work, Lisa, and keep up the
Thank
good
you.
work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brad, next on the agenda, Forward Devils Lake.
Yes, thank you. You all should have just a 2-pager. It's got the budget, got highlights. I'll take specific questions on any of the highlights, but, the budget, as Lisa just said, is mainly personnel, which is me and our costs, my costs, I should say. So any questions on that? We don't really have the 2021 actuals finalized yet, so they're not there, but we get 22 and 23 as you see. I guess what I wanted to spend time on, if I could, depending on questions, is some of the things that we are trying to do right now, and a couple of things that I think I'm going to be coming before you to ask a little bit more of. There's been a lot of ARPA dollars, a lot of dollars that have been provided through North Central Planning. Rob, you're on that board. We get $1 million for Region 3 right now for workforce attraction and retention. And we've got a couple of programs. It's been very restrictive on how and what we can spend it on, but we're going to use some of it, about close to $500,000, bolstering and helping childcare centers. I'm hoping that the old McJohn's, is that what it was back in the day? Felix said it's been about 3 different things. The owners of that have been trying to sell it. We haven't had much success. They're talking about a childcare center to the tune of 60 to 70 kids, with infants. So that's another one on top of the Brzezinski one that's out, in the old Southgate Racket Center, which is another one. But the dollars will go for equipment, all different types of purposes. They can't really use it for staff, so it's really to help with their infrastructure, things of that nature. It's for centers or groups 30 and above. Dale?
Yeah.
And
She's doing fine.
She's doing fine.
Yeah.
But I point that out because he's got a business close to home, right?
Yeah.
In home.
And she's licensed for 30.
Yeah. The applications went out, we talked to them all, and in the 6-county region, we're getting 4 to 5 of the grants will be in ours, and only a couple will be outside of it. So we're seeing some of those dollars. The other half of the money could be close to $500,000 we're spending on a regional type or retention type program, and it's going to be a mobile career exploration lab. So I was talking with Jason, Commissioner Pierce here earlier. Our work shed is a lot of small towns. We're losing a lot of kids that are going into programs that aren't aligned with business. And you guys have heard me talk about it for 4 years. Maybe you guys haven't because you haven't been here for 4 years, but I've been talking about aligning that up. And the key has still been to get out to these schools. So we're going to have a career exploration lab. Imagine a Ford Transit van, Transstar van, I think it's called. It's a pretty large van that will have about 3 screens in it, latest technology. It's going to be a marketing vehicle to help go out and take a job coach and maybe 1 or 2 people from that business industry, talking with a kid and a couple of parents. In some cases, maybe 1 parent. In some cases, no parents. But going out to the Starkweathers, to the Edmores, to the Can-Dos, it's throughout our region. And the idea is to align the youth once again with our business and industry before they leave, so that they get the education, but they come back, rather than get the education and leave, or get the education and be recruited away. So anyway,
Help incentivize them to want to start a business in town?
there's so many.
Is that the whole?
Start a business, work for a plumber, work for a HVAC, work for a diesel mechanic. The jobs that we need filled that we're losing people to retirement daily.
Keep pushing for getting the trades back.
Absolutely.
Trade's a big part of it, but there's some healthcare is a big part of it as well. I mean, we don't have the workers, and we've got too many people retiring. So I'm doubling down even more so on it. It's been a mantra for mine. Terry, you've been on the Forward Devils Lake board from the beginning, ex officio. We've talked about it throughout the state. It's been an issue. So you're going to see more on that in the coming months here. The other thing that we have is write this down. Find the good life in North Dakota. Everybody in here, find the good life in North Dakota. The state Department of Commerce is putting together a program to help attract people to the state. When they sense an area that they like based on this website called Find the Good Life in North Dakota, the leads from people wanting to move will come to various community champions. I'm one of the community champions. B. Manson with Job Service is one of the community champions. We'll eventually have more. But already people have said they were interested, seen the website, and are coming to the state through this website. They'll fill out a form that kind of directs them to information so that they can get help on housing and those type of things. So it's called Find the Good Life in North Dakota. It's Department of Commerce. They're marketing this in regional cities throughout the U.S. Denver's one of them. You know, I really push for that because why? That's where our flights go to, right? It's a quick flight to get here. It's a quick flight, you know, from other areas. So Colorado's one of them. Chicago is another one. Mirrors some of the tourism that we get, you know, Wisconsin and others, but it's bigger populations that they're running the campaigns that are going to see this website and this campaign. And we're a big part of it. We're one of the regional cities. When you look at the map, when you go to the website, it'll point out along with, you know, the big cities. Valley City, I don't know if it's one of them. I know us in Jamestown and Minot, and then the Grand Forks, Fargo, and Bismarck's obviously, and Dickinson's as well. But if you guys don't have any other questions, available, you know, anytime. Rob, no? Dale?
I think one thing we talked about the other day when we were doing budgets is the fund that Fort Devil Lake has for their, can't remember what it was.
The growth fund?
The growth fund.
Yep.
Yeah, yep. And I think the question was, with all the other funds, there's like 50% or X amount you try to have for your threshold. I'm guessing the growth fund, there's really no cap or any thought there at all type of thing, or is there?
Just for it growing, you mean?
Yeah. How is there a thought? It's like you'd like to have at least $1 million in it. I think it was at 600 and some thousand.
It's grown. You know, when I first got here, we were in the 200 to 300 range. We've used some of those dollars. That's funding things like the Career Builder match that we have. It's funding training programs that we've had, but significant dollars have not come out of it. So we're up to that 500,000-600,000 and growing. Every day that a payment is made by Kojak, their building payment goes into that. So it'll continue to rise along with the sales tax dollars that go in over and above.
Okay, now you shift gears a little. Okay, so I think we maybe visited one time about the Kojak payments. If that's going back into there, I think we visited about it going into the general fund potentially, Terry, because isn't that where the money came out of?
I
When-
think it is going into the general fund.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's going into the
It's going into the general.
General,
It's not going into the growth fund.
it's not going in. The
Oh, okay.
payments for the building itself are not.
But you have a lot of
Yeah.
affordable housing loans, those kinds of things are going in there.
Okay,
As
that's fine.
as they're being paid off, those are going back into it.
Okay.
But yeah, the growth fund is general, yeah. Commissioner Robinson, if we get that Marvin Windows that comes in and says, I want to build a plan here, that's the fund that economic development groups throughout the state go to be able to use to help provide some dollars. In the Crotega proposal that we had recently for this pepper spray company, we took a few dollars and put it in as a potential proposal from the Fort Devils Lake board. We haven't heard a final decision on it. We were down to one of 3 finalists. So that is our go-to fund to be able to provide over and above for our flex base or our PACE funding opportunities. Most of what we've done, except for the Ultra Green deal or Kojak, we provided them the building and then we're getting paid back. Most of what we've done in the past have been the interest buy down program that this PACE program that the Bank of North Dakota has. Without that, there wouldn't be economic development in North Dakota. That's been a significant part of it. And where that is we buy the interest down for a period of time, and then we get paid back. Ours, in some communities, they make it a grant that loan isn't paid back. Ours gets paid back after the actual business pays back the main bank. And it's time boxed. Sometimes it's only 5 years, 10 years, but it's an interest buy down program that way.
And those are the ones that that I don't question, but in the back of your mind, you just want to make sure somebody's paying attention to that. So when that time frame comes, they are paying the forward Devils like back,
It's interesting you bring that up. That's been a challenge because that was when I first got here, we had some confusion, with Rachel and getting some lined up. We've got a system. It's the spreadsheet that Linda started just before I came in, that if those payments come in, Bank of North Dakota, when they're paid off, that's a trigger. That's a trigger for us. I can guarantee you 10 of them are going to be long after Brad's gone.
Right, yeah, that's all.
And some of it after Rachel. To this point, I've managed it. It's in a system and I've got a process for it. We've had some that pay off early. The way it's set up, if they pay off early, our loans due in full. So we've gotten full payments. So we've had a lot of the building projects that Gleason Construction had. They were paid off in full. He actually paid them off. So those dollars have gone back in. So that's another growth of that growth fund is those repayments. So if you have a $500,000 housing and you paid off the main loan on it to the primary bank and we've borrowed him $40,000, that's a $40,000 payment. And we've had over 150, just about $200,000 in payoffs this last year too. So they're being managed. There's a system for when I get hit by a bus or
whatever.
I go fishing forever instead of part-time. But, that is a process in place. But that's the importance between Forward Devils Lake and the city. They did our books. We're not finished out yet. Losing Linda hurt. So that what do you call it? Institutional knowledge is important. And I've got a lot of institutional knowledge that's in forms of paperwork and the knowledge that I've transferred to people, but that's it. And when I'm gone, right? So we do need that transitional time frame. Rob, you've seen that, and I'm sure at North Central Planning, because throughout that region, there's been a lot of transition with a lot of the economic development people and a lot of the board members. So
That is for sure.
yeah. Any other questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you for your support. We're doubling down on workforce. It's number one. And like I said, some of the other things, the community involvement. I got a Department of Commerce new employee coming tomorrow. She's really coming in tonight. And don't be surprised if I'm taking her fishing. I'm not taking her fishing. I want to go fishing. I want her to see the impact the lake has. I want her to see the campgrounds that we have. I'm going to go to Haybell Shore, the marina. So she really understands our area and our region and what tourism means to it. And then the amenities and the quality of life that we have. She goes back to Bismarck, talks to 10, 15 others. But more importantly, she's Department of Commerce. She's talking to people across the state.
keep
Thank you.
promoting us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Brad.
Thank you, Jim.
Make sure
Thank you.
make sure she catches something.
Lately, that's been tough. Okay, sorry. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Well, Mike, I think it's your turn.
Mayor Mo, if I could just,
Oh, I'm
there
sorry.
is, we had to make one change here shortly before the meeting, so I'd encourage you to look at the hard copy that you have. If you look online, look at the hard copy, as there was one change. And it will inform and make a slight change for the general fund. So we'll have further conversation about that. But Mr. Grassgard, if you want to give a briefing on the capital improvement plan.
Sure. In the past, the city's had a capital improvement committee that has worked to identify capital improvements within the city and prioritizing those infrastructure improvements. And what it came down to is there's some items, water main replacements and streets and primary infrastructure items that we have prioritized and said, yeah, these are things that need to be addressed and taken care of. But there's also a list of capital improvement projects that are more of the wants, and some of those items that have been identified aren't listed before you, but there's a whole list of other items that we can address here, talking about City Hall expansion and improvements, improvements to the public works buildings, improvements to splash parks and some of those amenities that we would like to have, but they weren't identified as the primary things that we need to get done. And so as part of that infrastructure committee, we started with a map. And what we do is we have a map of all of the city roadways, and those city roadways, when we started, the map was blank, basically, because what we're trying to do is track the roadways, the age of the roadways, the asphalt condition, and then trying to prioritize, hey, we need to improve this roadway. And so once we complete a project, it's on the map. We complete another project, it's on the map, and we've been tracking it. And not only have we tracked what we've done, but we've also tracked here's where we're going next, and we've identified it. And so pretty soon, all of the roadways in town have some color to them, right? Because we're making those improvements. And so before you, with the capital improvement, the infrastructure plan, we kind of laid out, hey, what we did in 2021. In 2022, we're completing, mill and overlay projects that we've already awarded contracts for. That's work from 8th Avenue going east from Walnut Street to the railroad tracks. So that's a very large area that we're working on this year. Roadways that haven't been touched in a significant period of time, the areas over in Marewood, some of those roadways are in very poor condition. So we're working to improve those roadways. And we're also working to, so we have roadway improvements that we're working on, and then we have water mains that we're working on. And we have to try and coordinate the water main replacement with the roadway improvement. We don't want to improve the roadway and then come back and replace water main. But we also want to replace the water main in advance, a couple years ideally. So we have 2 or 3 years of replace the water main before we go back and improve the roadway itself. And so this year we have the roadway improvement on the east side of the city, and then we're working on the water main replacement on the west side of the city. And the goal with water main replacement is to try and address, old cast iron pipes, some of the oldest pipes in the city. As part of that capital improvement committee and to the city commission, I've always said, just because a water main is an old water main, and just because it's a cast iron water main, doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad water main. You can have a water main that's been in place for nearly 100 years. If it's not breaking and it's not causing you problems, and the roadway itself is in good condition, you don't need to replace that water main, right? When the water main starts to break, that tells you that you have to
It
replace
breaks
that
after
water
you
main.
put the new road on top.
In some cases, that has been an issue. So that's something that we look at as well. Is we've had issues where water main hasn't been breaking. We overlay the roadway because there is no break history, and for whatever reason, when we've been vibrating the soil or vibrating compacting the asphalt, that's caused a little issue with disturbing the crust on those old mains. And we've done many, many, many blocks, and only a handful of those blocks have we encountered issues. But that is a risk that you take, right? No doubt if you're completely reconstructing a roadway, right? You're starting over with brand new base, brand new curb, brand new everything. Then you do brand new infrastructure. When we're looking at a mill and overlay is, it's a remediation strategy that's used, but it's much, much less expensive than a full reconstruction. When you do a full reconstruction, that's entirely different. We've completed mill and overlay, to get to the mayor's point, we've completed mill and overlay in some areas where there's newer PVC water main, but it has ductile iron fittings. And we've encountered problems with ductile iron fittings after the fact, where that disturbance has caused just a little bit of a problem. All of a sudden we have a leak a year or two later in even new areas. And so what we've identified with our infrastructure improvement plan, as identified before you, we have the water main replacement on the west side that we're going to complete hopefully this year. We may not get through all of it. The contractor's hoping that we can get through all of it, but with material delivery issues, we may not have the things that we need to complete it. And so some of that project may be completed next year. As identified in the plan, next year, there's many areas of kind of random areas on the south side of the city, so south of the railroad tracks, from College Drive going to about 8th Avenue, where these cast iron water mains exist in this area. There's a little bit of cast iron over here and a little bit over here, and so there's a lot of random areas there. We don't have a lot of break history there, but we're identifying it as, hey, we're gonna go after those areas. We're gonna get those water mains replaced next year. That's what's identified in 2023. And then we'll come back a couple years after that and work on the roadways on the south side. Next year, Dale, as you very well know, the Midco Road, very poor condition. It's just, it's very poor soils, high water because of the wetland mitigation that was completed in Ruger Park back in the 70s. And so water is just held against 14th Street there for extended period of times. A lot of water, poor soils, equates to very soft subgrade. And so we have access to some COVID funds through the Department of Transportation, and that could be used on some of the roadways that the city has identified in our urban network. And because of the limited potential to special assess any improvements on that road, because the township, we share responsibility with the township currently, there's just not a lot of funds there. And so that seems like a reasonable roadway to use our COVID funds for. And what we're going to try and do is stabilize that very soft base. So we're taking some soil borings, going to develop a strategy to try and, whether it's a cement treatment where we rip up the road, put some cement in it, and then try and harden it so that we can build up on top of it. And so that's a project that we're looking at completing next year, as well as that Stromquist storm sewer project that we had scheduled for this year, but based on the bid that was received and the engineer's estimate, we're going to move that project to next year. After that, we have more projects, mill and overlay on the west side in 2024. If we get the water mains replaced this year, that'll give us a couple of years, and then we'll go back on the west side and improve the roadways over there. The roadways on the west side are in very poor condition. As Leroy's department can attest to, there's a lot of time put into trying to patch over there, and you patch a hole and all of a sudden another hole pops up. So that's an area that we know needs to get addressed. Also doing some more improvements on the south side for 8th Avenue, 17th Street, 10th Avenue. That was a project that was scheduled for next year, but we had to move that to the following year. And then, of course, when we do these mill and overlay projects, not only do we have to complete the asphalt portion, but then we have to put a surface treatment on it to make sure that we basically put a sunblock on it. Do that seal coat, make sure that we put some more oil on top so that the sun doesn't oxidize that oil, dry out the new roadways that we have, and increase our maintenance. So we have that, and then we have some additional mill and overlay work, more water main work. The important thing on the plan that's before you is we've identified specific areas, but they may move. It might be that we've identified this area, but another area we have more water break history in a different area, so we prioritize that. And this plan is a little bit of a state of flux. Mayor, on your roadway, for instance, there's some cast iron water mains.
I was just looking at that and thinking, God, I thought ours is plastic now, but
There's still cast iron water mains over there,
yeah.
but your roadway's in good shape. So if you have a roadway that's in good shape and a water main that isn't breaking, we're not going to go chase down and replace a water main just for the sake of replacing a water main because we think it's an old water main and a cast iron water main. But we have identified those water mains as, okay, they're cast. We know that we're going to put it on a list for replacement. But if your roadway's still in good condition, we don't need to mill and overlay it. We don't need to go reconstruct it. We don't need to replace the water main. So the important thing with the capital improvement plan is we're trying to identify, the plan was somewhere between, $2.5 to $3 million, I think, annually was kind of the number we were shooting for capital improvements. Because some of that money then is going to be transferred to the general fund based on our 16% that we assess for admin, legal, and engineering in those projects. And so, that kind of plays with the budget that, Spencer's working on. In some cases, it's just the way the projects work out. Some cases, the dollar amounts are going to be a little bit higher. Some cases are going to be a little bit lower. But that was kind of the general concept when we were laying it out. When we're doing roadways, we're trying to do specific sections, and when we're doing a section, there may be a block in there that the roadway is in relatively good condition, but we're not going to skip that one block, right? Because they all kind of have the same relative age. So we're doing that area when we're working on it. Same thing with the water mains. There may be a block that doesn't have any break history, but we're going to replace from a reasonable beginning and a reasonable end to make that all come together. And so that's what we've been working on as part of the capital improvement plan. You have a general layout of what's happening, and I'll just, tell the commission that this is a plan, this is a general layout of what we're working on, and it can be in a little bit of a state of flux where we have to adjust accordingly with our capital improvement committee.
Was that taken into account the overprice or the oil prices down today versus the prior? Or were they adjusted for that, or?
Yeah, these are the numbers that we've been using, like for mill and overlay. These have been conservative numbers.
Mhm.
But when you're projecting out 5 years, we don't know what that's going to bring, right? We're just looking at today's dollars, here's where we're at. And, we'll adjust accordingly as we need in that year.
Any questions from me?
I thought when he started out talking about the wish list, you're gonna say something, you found some money for the wish list. There's nothing to add to that.
Well, there is money available for a wish list, and that's something that has to be prioritized, right? That's the additional funds that are identified in the plan that you have, right? But most of the infrastructure goals that we're talking about are either dollars that we're coming through, through the Department of Transportation, through the State Water Commission, or city sales tax dollars.
The Prairie Dog money was used on some of that too, right?
Yep. So there's two kind of big funds that we use for infrastructure. It's this new municipal infrastructure fund with the Prairie Dog from the state, as well as 2033. This is an infrastructure fund we use for sale. We use sales tax dollars for that. And so we're choosing to use these projects because they're for hard infrastructure, water and roads. This Prairie Dog fund is there. As these are the uses these funds need to be used for. So, and I would add, so on the cover sheet that you got, on the payments to contractors, you're going to see 1.67 million. We're going to have to change that number to 2.23 million. And for Wednesday, we'll update this and provide to you so you guys see the fresh new copy.
Okay.
And I think with anything with the capital improvement plan, I like into it like a game plan for a football game. You stated the game plan for the first quarter, but then after that, you kind of have to adapt as the game goes along and play the game that's in front of you. So we continually update that and some changes, and it's we need to be adaptable with it. And want to thank Mike for his work on that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mike. And now we move on to the general fund, and I'll turn it over to Spencer.
Yeah, being the new administrator here, one of the things when you're learning about the budget, I like to look at the past, which informs the present and then helps inform where you're going. So conceptually, when I was looking, I included a few charts of things that I found useful when I was looking at the budget, and just kind of a history over the last decade of where the city's mill rate was. 2012 it was 117. About 2017 it went to 87, and we've been at 93.11 here today. And so as you can see where we start over the decade and where we're at, we've decreased the mills, which is good. And so
you're
I think-
projecting 76 mills for 23?
for our general fund.
Oh,
For our general fund, yeah.
right.
But if you add in what we give to the airport, the library, it's a total of 93.11.
Good.
And that's where we're at in 2022, and that's the recommendation for 2023 is to keep them exactly where they're at. But we'll talk about that more in detail. And another thing is, I think it's just important that the city is one small piece of a constituent's total property tax bill. And we have the city, we have the county, we have the school district, we have the park district, and so just a general overlay of where each political subdivision has been going. And these graphs were made from the information provided from the Board of Equalization, which I believe I included as part of some of your materials should you want to review. And then just the percentage of each person's, we're at 20%. City, county, and schools are all about 30 or a little bit less. So we're sitting pretty good there. And then with our funds that we received, both COVID and the CARES money and the ARPA dollars, they're all in the general fund right now. And we know how much that we received. I'm choosing to think about it a little differently. Instead of, hey, we got all this money, we need to spend each dollar amount. It's where do we want our general fund reserve to be at? And what's a comfortable place? And how do we slowly get there? As you'll see, general fund reserve balance, I included that chart all the way back from 2003 to 2021. And the blue line is what the average reserve balance was 2003 to 2019. And I stopped at 2019 because that was pre-COVID, and COVID has increased our general fund reserve balance quite a bit, as you can tell from the graph. So just a conversation with you guys on where we want those to be. It's right just a little bit over 40% was the average. State Century Code, I believe, says the minimum is 18%, and that's what's generally you don't want to be at 18%. That means you're probably running pretty thin. But I think a lot of communities, they run that 25 to 30% range, and each community is unique. Depends on how stable your income sources is, and we bring in a lot of sales tax to the general fund, and so it's always probably good to have a little bit healthier of a reserve balance just in case that rainy day comes. And I think the big thing to take note is we saw that rainy day the last 3 years with the pandemic, and we're faring pretty good as far as the financial health of the city. So I would take that away. And any questions on the charts to begin with, and I can help explain some of the thought process with there, or any institutional knowledge that Mr. Johnston here might have as well prior to going through. Okay. And there's going to need to be some changes to the general fund as we were just continually looking at this throughout the day, but we'll just go through it. One thing that I'm going to need direction from the city commission is specifically the law enforcement center and the rent. And I don't know if that's a conversation for today, or maybe we can have that on Wednesday. But there's been, I guess, from doing research and getting the story from the past is there's been an increased rent at the LEC, and the city being a part owner in the building has said we're going to continue to pay the old rent. And so in the budget, in the general fund, you're going to see the whole rent, and we'll need to eventually get direction from the commission.
Since Commissioner Hammer's not here, maybe we should wait till Wednesday to have that discussion.
I think that would be prudent. But anyways, just going from top to bottom, transferring 41% of our sales tax in versus normally we do 40, but we have the West End Viaduct bond, and we have like a three times the general expenditure in a year in that balance, and we're going to be paying that off till about 2033. So I felt I felt justified to bring 1% from there and just leave that at 8%, as it's not going anywhere, and we're running pretty high balance in there. So just putting in 41% there. And like I said, what I did is, I said, let's try to keep the mills the same, given where we're at with our reserve balance. And just going down, you'll see the orange highlight is $102,000 for grants. Later on, you're going to see an expenditure for the siren radios, which is part of those COVID funds. And the state is refunding $1,500 per radio. And so between our fire department, our police department, and the volunteer fire department, that's what we could expect to receive in state grants.
Okay, with that being, is this 102, is this the payment to the LEC for siren, or is this
No,
spending update radios?
This is our radio specifically.
Okay.
And then a transfer in, just one noted transfer in from one of the infrastructure funds that we have. Typically, we have a miscellaneous fund in there that's about $250,000. We just lowered that to 200 and sent 42 in here just to keep things stable. So then you'll go into the general fund expenditures, and again, I highlighted the law enforcement center rent because that's going to be something we're going to need to discuss. And then the other two items, as Mr. Johnson had came in here and presented, are reflected in the other two numbers. And some of the biggest drivers and increased costs that you'll see throughout there are, of course, the 5% recommendation for cost of living, gas and oil. I took a 1.5, sometimes a 1.6 multiplier to all of those. Hopefully gas prices will be cheaper in 2023 than they are in 2022, but you never know. So we budgeted those as a significant increase, as well as health insurance. When speaking with Blue Cross Blue Shield, we're not going to have updated rates until mid-August. And so as an update, as a general projection, we're doing an increase of 7% as we feel that in talking with Mr. Johnson and the history here, that would be the wisest thing to do. So in going through that, a lot of the city hall departments, personnel costs are the big drivers. Auditing department, the city attorney is $100,000 as we came to that agreement with the Junker Law Firm. And one thing too to note is our 2022 actuals as far as personnel costs are probably going to be lower than we anticipated, just given all the turnover that we've had throughout the organization, whether it's in the street department, police department, as well as some less senior folks throughout City Hall. So personnel costs should go down in 2022. In the police department, as far as the equipment, you'll see that orange highlighted number. $130,000 roughly for that is those siren radios, as well as $70,000 for a new police vehicle. We're aspiring to get on a reoccurring
What
in and
kind of
out
Cadillac
basis.
are you driving? $70,000?
The equipment, I think with the equipment in there. Well, what we want to do is we've talked about getting on a reoccurring schedule with all of our departments on all of the equipment. And I think our goal eventually will be 2 vehicles a year for the police department to get them in, get them out. And right now they don't have a very big equipment reserve fund. So right now, I think for 2023 budget for 1 vehicle. And then I anticipate our 2022 personnel costs are going to be less. And so trying to find that increment and put that in their equipment reserves to try and build that base for moving forward in the future.
As bad as fire trucks.
Let's get there.
So that's, and then, like I said, the gas, oil, and grease is 20 grand more.
Hmm.
But budget. Hopefully, God willing, we don't spend that much, but we want to have it there just in case. And then fire department on the equipment. The fire department, we're going to have to make a couple changes here as I, just in talking with Chief Bennett here. I think we want to spend a little bit more on education and training. And you'll see the 135 in there for siren radios for both the fire department and the volunteer fire department. The chief, would you want to just speak about the cost share between the volunteer fire department? Or is there a cost share? No, that's a different one.
That's the SUV.
Sorry, Mike, excuse me. Excuse me. So I'm on the public buildings one, 222. One thing to note on the advertising and promotion, I pulled out from city commission promotion. Typically we would pay for the fireworks out of there, the fireworks display. A separate line item for fireworks. So this year was 21,000. So I just put 22 in there, give or take. And then planning right now, we contract with a gentleman, I think out in Munich for planning. And I think having a good conversation with you as the commissioners as to where we want to go as far as planning is concerned, if we want to do a comprehensive plan, if we want to punt, if we want to, just where we want to go with that. So I think that'll be a topic of discussion in the future, but budgeting there for now. Shade Tree, just formalizing what we've been doing the past couple of years and committing to contracting it out. The past 2 or 3 years, we've aspired to hire internally, but we've just committed to contracting out. So I think moving forward and committing to that strategy is what I've got laid out here. So you'll see the personnel costs are basically 0, and then payment to contractors, 38,000, and a total of 44, which is I think where we need to be. Yeah, so street department, one thing is the equipment. They're looking to get a used dump truck and a grind laser and conveyor belt. I think they've also communicated a desire to experiment with some brining, maybe along Highway 2. And so if that's in the cards for the budget cycle, or if that's in the cards for next year, we might pursue that, we might not. So we'll see there. And I transferred in from their equipment reserve as they got a pretty healthy balance there in streets. So transferred that 64,500 in. And then the one thing that, as far as the COVID money that I'm recommending is the creation of a public building reserve fund and transferring $350,000 into a newly created fund in our 2,000 accounts. just so that we have a chunk of money there, is saying if we do want to remodel a little bit here at City Hall and invest in any of our other buildings, we can tap that fund. Instead of going to our infrastructure funds, we can set aside this for, if we want to remodel the city commission chambers or a little bit around City Hall or any of our public buildings. We can tap this and putting a little bit of money in it every year moving forward after this. So that's one recommendation there. And then so at the end of it, you're going to see the revenue and expenses. You're going to see a large negative number to spend the money that we've got from the COVID era days. We're going to have to run the negative balance. There's no way around it to spend the money. So conceptually, what you can think here is, and this is what I see when I see the negative 618. I see this 160 for the siren radios, $350,000 transferred into future investment in our facilities, and then about $100,000 worth of just property tax stabilization in my head. I think when we went over our funds last Thursday, I think it was, we went over and I showed you how where we were as far as bonds and infrastructure and TIF districts, and it's anticipated that the value of a mill when those TIF districts come off the book is going to increase significantly, probably in the next 5, 6, 7 years. And so with this COVID money, I've kind of mentally walled off maybe $400,000 to $500,000. If we keep property taxes flat over the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to see significant growth in the mill, and we're going to be better for it. So, and you know, you don't take anything for a given. You continually closely monitor things, and if we need to adapt, we can adapt. But just that's where my head is at right there. And so, recommendation is just to keep the mills flat, and if we run a little bit of a negative balance, it's I wouldn't raise any red flags. It's intentional, as well as the sales tax projections are very conservative. In 2021, we brought in 4.1. We are projecting 4.2, just to be conservative. So, and then the rest of it is just to give you an idea of where the general fund expenditures go. A large chunk goes to public safety, as I generally do in all communities. And then just a mill breakdown for you as to where all the mills go. 76.11 in the general fund, 5 to the cemetery, 4 to the airport, 5 to the library, and 3 to the JDA. So significant growth in the mill this year, which is really positive to see. So I would welcome any questions for you.
When you said significant growth in the mill, you mean the valuations?
So how much a mill will be worth in 5 years with all these TIF districts that we have currently?
Okay,
There,
5 years. Okay, I thought you meant this year.
yeah, because
Okay.
currently all those districts, all the money that's generated from it goes to pay for the improvements in that specific area. But then once it comes into the general property tax roll, the value of a mill will go up quite a bit. And I think if you look at the Board of Equalization, I wish I had it in front of me, but you know, it has the valuation of the community without the TIFs, which is what we use here, and then it has it with the TIFs, and it's a significantly larger number. Granted, we have a little bit of time before those are going to come on, and just something to continue to monitor. But knowing it's out there, especially with how much we have in our reserve balance, it seems like a strategic thing to do. And if you look at the reserve balance that's projected by the end of the year, we're still at over 50% reserves projected at the end of 2023. So I would welcome any questions you guys may have.
Gentlemen, you must have did a great job explaining. Wow.
There's just a couple things that might change, and I think loosely going over the general fund again on Wednesday, when we convene again, we'll just explain any small changes that we have.
Okay.
I think we're gonna have to make a couple changes on our estimated engineering fees for some construction projects, as the number is a little lower than we were originally thinking. So we'll have to adapt just a little bit.
That's good.
Well, in this case, it might not be good because the infrastructure projects are a little bit less. So the income to the general fund is a little less because we're charging based on percentage of the payment to the contractors.
Okay.
So
Any questions of any kind? Terry, thanks for sitting in and guiding us through this year. Appreciate your attendance. Well, especially working with Spencer and Bree to help help them out. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Is there any other business to come before us? Any questions? If
So
not,
the general statement will be there will be 0% mill increase for 2023.
You know,
That'll be
it's,
the-
yeah, and so, you know, when people talk about their property taxes, you know, if the value of their house went up, then their property, but as far as the rate, we are keeping it the same. Meaning if your house stayed the exact same price, at least the city's contribution, your contribution would be the same.
That I always like to talk about dollars when I'm talking about taxes.
Oh.
'Cause if you're talking about mills, that seems to be a false pretense in my mind. It's like, okay, your mills didn't go up, but my valuation went up, my taxes went up. So it can tell me that if it just as a side note.
One of the cool graphs, and what I'll actually make another graph for you on Wednesday, is you can stabilize it as tax percentage on a $150,000 house, right? So you take 150,000 and you just keep it at 150,000. You can see what the percentage rate would be, because you know you only take like 4.5% of the assessed value of the house in your calculations. So I'll create that graph for you so you can kind of see them. Does that help?
Yeah, no, I understand. Like say, I was just looking at the 2023 on the bottom here. 0 mills equated to $150,000, which is kind of nice. And like you said, 5 years from now, 0 mills might be $200,000, whatever the case might be.
Yeah. And the other thing too, you know, it's a double-edged sword too, right? So with these TIF districts, the city is liable to fix the infrastructure as well too, right? So you hear about sprawl, right? So it's strategic growth and development. So although the value of the mill is going to increase too, our infrastructure liabilities due to increase over time. And so making sure that we're very strategic and cautious with it and don't get too far ahead of our skis. But I think we have something to be optimistic about given the growth that we see in the community.
I'm good.
Good. Okay, well, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Cameras off.